Welcome to this episode of Hanging My Tree about Ernest Alexander Buchan, Ern, and Elizabeth May Howard May. This video shares memories of people who knew my great-grandparents and the information I've discovered about the couple. Ern and May's marriage survived an unthinkable tragedy. The couple lived through 2 world wars, the Great Depression, the Spanish flu epidemic. Their story touches on Freemasonry, the Great Depression, Bunurong Power Station, and a few surprises along the way. So let's look at where Ern and May sit in the family tree. Ern and May had 3 children, Isabel May Buchan, Elsa Margaret Buchan, and Howard James Buchan. Their eldest daughter, Isabel May Buchan, was my grandmother. She married Roy Keith Lang. Roy was the son of Cecil Lang and Laura Sharman, and the grandson of Henry Peter Christopher Lang and Isabella Grace Florence. Ern was the son of the Reverend James Buchan and Christian Buchan, and the brother of George Rutherford Buchan. You would recognise some of these names from earlier Hanging in My Tree videos. Ern was the grandson of William Buchan and Elizabeth Duthie, Margaret Munro and John Jack. May was the eldest child of Alexander Thomas Napoleon Howard, or Thomas, and Alice Munsey. She was the grandchild of Henry Howard, Elizabeth Searle, Henry William Munsey, Catherine Wareham, and the step-grandchild of William Mason. So let's start with May first. Like we've discovered before, there are not as many records about May as there are about her husband, Ern. May was born in July 1891 in Wandsworth, England. She actually lived in Battersea, a town south of London. According to the internet, because I wasn't there, the 1890s were a time of significant change and development in London. The city was experiencing industrial progress and deep social inequities. The skyline was described as filled with chimney smoke, and the streets were bustling with horse-drawn carriages, costermongers, and gas lamps. Apparently, a costermonger is a street seller of fruit and vegetables. Also at that time, Queen Victoria's reign was nearing its end. London Bridge and Hyde Park looked very different to how they do today. Okay, so back to May. May's birth was registered between July and September 1891. She was not included in the 1891 census, but at that time her parents were residing at 55 Haynes Street, Battersea, at Missions House. May's father was 29, a carman, which is a driver of a horse-drawn cart. The family had a lodger who was residing in the home. The census also confirmed that May's siblings Horace and Ethel were born in Surrey, Battersea, and that May's mother had been born in Surrey, Clapham. We know that May travelled as a newly born infant on the ship Nanshire SS on the 26th of October 1892 with 50 other passengers on a voyage of 60 days. She travelled from London with her parents, Thomas and Alice Howard, and her siblings, Ethel, Horace, and Mary Searle. They were bound for Sydney. They arrived on the 22nd of December 1892. There is no indication of why the family travelled to Australia, but Alexander's mother had also travelled to and was living in Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. On 27 November 1893, May's brother, Percy Cecil Howard, was born in Sydney, Australia. I can't find any record of May again until 1913, when she was recorded in the electoral roll, living with her parents and siblings at 78 Quarry Street, Ultimo. She was reported as a dressmaker and her sister Ethel as a tailoress. Her brother Percy was a brass finisher. She was on the same electoral roll as Ernest, who lived a 5-minute walk away at the corner of Allen and Harris Streets, Pyrmont. It is clear that at some stage May and Ern did cross paths, as they were married on the 29th of June 1918. So let's rewind and find out a little bit more about Ern's life before marrying May. Ern was the child of immigrant parents, but unlike May, he was not an immigrant himself. His parents, whom you would be well acquainted from our earlier videos, immigrated from Scotland to Pyrmont, Sydney, for the Reverend to run the Pyrmont Congregational Church. These videos deal in detail about the Buchan family and their life in Pyrmont at the time. Ern was born in Pyrmont on the 28th of April 1891 to Reverend James Buchan and Christian Jack. He was the 8th child of the couple, with Margaret, Elizabeth and the twins Annie and Christine and James being born in Scotland, and his brothers John and William were also born in Sydney, as was his younger brother Rudd. We know that in 1913 Ern was a carpenter living with his parents and siblings in the manse of Pyrmont Congregational Church at 2 Allen Street, Sydney. His occupation was noted as a carpenter. Interestingly, May received a postcard from Ern's brother, George Rutherford Buchan, Rudd. If you followed the Hanging in My Tree videos, you'll know that Rudd was an early volunteer in the army in World War I. The postcard is sent from Egypt on the 14th of January 1916 and reads, "Dear May, I am glad to read that you found time to write, and also that you have the common craze. It will keep you out of mischief, but no doubt you don't have much time for that. I haven't seen Les Jarvik for a long while, months in fact, and I suppose it will only be a fluke if we happen to meet again. Hope all are well at your place and that you are the same. Best wishes, yours sincerely, G.R. Buchan." There's nothing to suggest a romantic tie, but perhaps May knew Rudd before she even knew Ern. The next significant event recorded in Ern's life was the death of his brother Rudd, who was killed in action in Buchan, France on April 1917. Approximately 1 year later, Ern and May married on 29 June 1918. The certificate of marriage tells us that Ern's father, Reverend James Buchan, officiated the marriage in the Baptist Church in Harris Street, Sydney. Yes, you heard me right, a Baptist church. My grandmother's notes tell me that as May's parents were Baptists and Ern's father was a congregational minister, the couple were married by 2 ministers, a congregational and a Baptist minister, Horace Cubis. This was also confirmed in their silver wedding anniversary announcement. May changed to Congregationalism following the couple's marriage. On their marriage certificate, Ern's occupation was recorded as a builder and May as a home duties. In 1920, Ernest and May are recorded as residing at 162 Pyrmont Bridge Road, Enfield. On 2 April 1920, my grandmother Isabella May Buchan was born to the couple in Woollahra, and on 10 May 1921, their daughter Elsa Margaret Buchan was born in Carlton. Shortly after, on 9 July 1921, Ern's sister Maggie passed away at age 42 years from the flu epidemic. On 11 July 1921, Reverend James Buchan died, and less than a week later, on 15 July, May's sister Ethel died from the flu epidemic. The family was still living at Pyrmont Street at this time. There is a letter to the editor from a May E. Buchan. May's actual name was Elizabeth May, but she went by May Elizabeth. The letter was about the closing of the Tresillian Infant Welfare Training School. May said, "As a mother who has received infinite benefit from the mothercraft teaching at Tresillian, I feel that perhaps the relation of my experience may show what a grievous loss to many mothers this would be. My baby at 3 months began to lose weight, and under the impression that my milk was disagreeing with her, I weaned her. From that time, my troubles commenced, and none of the substitutes I tried proved suitable. After struggling with her for 3 weeks, each day seeing her grow rapidly worse, I visited a baby clinic and was there told by the nurse of the benefits that would be derived by becoming a resident at Tresillian for a short time. My case is only one of many which were in Tresillian with me, and it seems little short of catastrophe that this place of invaluable help and encouragement to disheartened mothers should soon have to be closed its doors for lack of money." I can't say with any certainty that this letter was from May, but it matches with her location at the time and around the age of the birth of her daughter Elsa. The couple's son, Howard James Buchan, was born on the 22nd of March 1923 in Hurstville, with the family confirmed living at 85 West Street, Hurstville between 1924 and 1928. There are some notes about Ern's education and employment. Ern had an ordinary public school education, leaving at sixth form at age 14 years. There are school photos of both Ern and May, but neither indicate the name of the school in which they attended. Ern passed the temporary public service exam. He passed the exam for the telephone department of the Department of Commonwealth Public Services. He acted as a temporary clerk in the public service for 2 years, which he left of his own accord. During the Depression years between 1930 and 1934, he had been an insurance agent for CM Life. In October 1929, the New York Stock Exchange crash was one of the precipitating factors of the Great Depression, which in Australia spanned from around 1929 to 1939. It caused unprecedented unemployment and hardship. Many banks collapsed, and wages and pensions for those who were working were cut. Many families relied on the SUSO, sustenance payments. In the 1930s, insurance salesmen for companies like Colonial Mutual Life were key figures, particularly during the Depression. They were door-to-door agents providing financial protection when there was no real government welfare. They sold life policies and collected the weekly premiums from the homes. Salesmen were viewed as professional advisors and had to be persuasive and persistent. Ern then completed a 3-year course at the Sydney Technical College for the trades course for a carpenter apprentice and architectural drawing. His apprenticeship was with G.W. Logan. Following his apprenticeship as a carpenter, he was employed by various Sydney builders as a carpenter. There was a period of about 3 years where he was his own master builder, building cottages and repairing before obtaining employment at the Sydney City Council. On 4 December 1925, he was appointed to the council. From 6 February 1928, he worked on the building of the Bunurong Power Station. The Bunurong Power Station was a coal-fired power station at Matraville, a suburb in the southeast of Sydney. When its last generating unit was commissioned, it was the largest power station in the Southern Hemisphere and was able to supply a third of New South Wales' electricity. 6 turbo alternators were built between 1926 and 1930 by the Electricity Department of the Municipal Council of Sydney. It drew seawater from Botany Bay for cooling. The internet tells us by mid-1928, construction had progressed to erect the boiler house and turbine hall with roofing. It commenced commercial operation on 2 January 1929 and was decommissioned in 1975 following a noise and ash pollution complaints. It has now been demolished. On 10 June 1930, Ern was employed by the City Engineer Department. On 18 June 1930, May was accepted into the Fellowship of Rockdale Congregational Church. At that stage, the family were residing at 8 Atchison Street, Arncliffe. On 3 July 1930, there is a letter from Reverend Mosman of the Rockdale Congregational Church, confirming that the couple had been elected as members of the church and invited the couple to attend Sunday morning communion to be received publicly. The Reverend said, "I need not remind you of what church life means, for you will know it well." The couple were clearly active members of the church. They kept copies of the Constitution and the rules of the Rockdale Congregational Church. They had a manual for the deacons, elders, secretary and treasurer, and there are minutes from the monthly deacon meetings from the Rockdale Congregational Church in 1964 in their documents. By the 1930s, the electoral roll showed that the family were residing at 1 Carlton Street, Rockdale or Arncliffe. On 20 August 1936, Ern's mother Christian died. On 4 September 1936, Ern was appointed as a leading hand carpenter at the Sydney City Council till age 65 years. By this stage, he'd been working at the council for 6.5 years. Tragically, the couple's daughter Elsa died at age 16 years at the Prince Alfred Hospital. It's believed by the family that Elsa may have had leukemia. We know the illness was a prolonged one. There are photos of Elsa in a hospital bed, and there's a letter written about a month before her death from John Sands, possibly, which was expressing sympathy to the family in the continued serious illness of Elsa, wondering if the doctors were offering any hope of recovery and suggesting the family turn to God for support. During World War II, their only son Howard enrolled in the RAAF, which must have been heart-wrenching for the couple who'd already lost so many people, including their daughter. Fortunately, Howard returned to them safely. On 29 June 1943, there is an advertisement commemorating their silver wedding anniversary. In 1944, May's father Thomas passed away. There are a number of applications by Ern between 1945 and November 1947 for sub-foreman of the construction branch, general station foreman at the power branch, chief of works at the construction branch, sub-foreman carpenter, foreman and the chief of works. By 1945, Ern had studied foremanship classes in industrial management at the Sydney Technical College, and he held a driver's licence for 8 years. He'd sat the exam for the department supervising in 1946. He'd passed the council driving test. He held a first aid and respiration service badge of the Royal Life Saving Society. By 1946, the family had a telephone number, LX2480. This was the first time I'd seen a historical telephone directory. By 20 January 1947, Ernst's persistence in applying for a better job paid off, and he was employed as a sub-foreman at the mains engineering of the Sydney City Council with a probation period of 6 months. On 6 May 1947, May's mother, Alice, passed away. In 1951, when Ern was 60 years of age, he was installed as the Worshipful Master at Lodge John Bidwell at the Masonic Temple, Dalhousie Street, Haberfield. I must admit I did have pause as to whether I could share Freemasonry documents, but it appears it's acceptable to do so. I'm not sharing the secrets of what occurred behind the closed doors, nor was that information shared with me. In addition, Ancestry specifically included Freemasonry membership records. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Freemasonry is the world's oldest and largest fraternity, which is said to attract men of good character. The Grand Master was the head of their jurisdiction, like a state. The head of the lodge was the Worshipful Master, and Ern would have served in this position after rising through the officer ranks. Generally, the Worshipful Master would serve for 1 year, but could be elected to be the Master on more than one occasion. Ern was a foundation member of the Lodge John Bidwell number 711. The lodge is no longer in existence. There are many Masonic documents showing Ern's involvement in various roles, including the secretary. It's clear that Ern was proud of his time as Worshipful Master, as he kept meeting documents during the period that he held this position. On the 25th of March 1966, Ern and May travelled to South Australia, where the Queen Mother opened Flinders University. Ern and May were the proud parents supporting their son, who was involved in the building of the university and went on to become the registrar of the university. Ern and May kept a copy of their invitation of the program. On the 24th of May 1966, May died at age 75 years. She was buried at Wenora Memorial Park, Sutherland Shire. On 11 December 1966, there is a letter of condolences from Ernest and Margie Bruce from Aberdeen and a card from Joan Matthews. The card talked about the wonderful years of happiness Ern had had with dear May, and she says that she trusts that Ern has no further setbacks with his health, so that he can enjoy the garden, sunshine, and the company of family and friends. Ern passed away 3 years after May, aged 78 years, on the 25th of January 1970. He was buried with May. His probate was granted on the 24th of November 1970. Family have shared some memories about Ern and May that I would like to share with you. Everyone remembers their holiday home at Werry Beach. My aunt remembers the dark green Austin A40 that Ern and May would pick them up in from the train station, and how they would spend their summers in a converted shed with a shower and a toilet. They would go to the beach or the lagoon all day, except they would have to be home between 11 and 2. The Buchans, the Langs, the Rhymes have all shared precious memories of their times with Ern and May at Werry Beach. A few people, like my uncle, had told me about Ern's skill as a carpenter and how he still had some pieces that Ern had made. Ern's son Howard inherited his father's love of working with wood and handyman jobs, and when Ern visited his son, they would work on projects in his shed. Ian Rhymes remembers that Ern would play cards with his parents and that Ern would tell him stories about his involvement in building the Bunurong power station. Family tell me stories of May having diabetes as a child and being scared of her syringes, and of Ern smoking wee Willem cigars. There is a curious letter which, for some reason, Ern and May saved. The letter's dated the 26th of October 1965, and it's a letter to Ern from Jess and Fred Smith, who lived in the Blue Mountains. I won't read the letter to you or show you it all. It goes for about 4 pages, but there were lots of clues in the letter: the address, the Echo Point Katoomba. The Reverend used to go to a church holiday home in the Blue Mountains, and May's parents also had a home in the Blue Mountains. The content of the letter suggested a Piermont connection, that Fred and Jessica were possibly members of the Piermont Congregational Church because the Reverend had signed their marriage certificate. She had 2 daughters, Mary and Jean. Mary's husband was Philip. Philip's father was Harry, who owned the Scenic Railway and Skyway. So I was able to find out that the owners of the Scenic Railway and Skyway was Harry Hammond and his wife Mary. They had a son, Philip. So presumably Jessica and Fred Smith were in-laws of Philip Harmon. I actually tracked down the identity of Fred and Jessica. It was actually Frederick Bean Smith, who was born in 1892 in Brisbane. He was an undertaker. And Janet Isabel Halliday, born in 1893. At the moment, the best I can tell, Janet and Frederick Smith were not relatives of the family, but friends. But I was able to track down their grandson and have provided him a copy of the letter. As usual, I would love to hear your stories or memories about Ern and May, or any of our other relatives. I will share any photos or documents that are shared with me. Thank you for listening to this episode of Hanging My Tree. There are documents and information that has been quoted or recreated directly from the internet, as this is prepared for family history purposes only.